The True Story of Christopher Columbus by Elbridge S. Brooks. Chapter 1 Boy with an Idea. Men who do great things are men we all like to read about. This is the story of Christopher Columbus, the man who discovered America. He lived 400 years ago. When he was a little boy, he lived in Genoa. It was a beautiful city in the northwestern part of the country called Italy. The mountains were behind it, the sea was in front of it, and it was so beautiful, a place that the people who lived there called it Genoa the Superb. Christopher Columbus was born in this beautiful city of Genoa in the year 1446 at number 27 Ponticello Street. He was a bright little fellow with a fresh-looking face, a clear eye, and golden hair. His father's name was Domenico Columbus. His mother's name was Susanna. His father was a wool comber. He cleaned and straightened out the snarled up wool that was cut from the sheep so as to make it ready to be woven into cloth. Christopher helped his father do this when he grew strong enough, but he went to school too and learned to read and write and to draw maps and charts. These charts were maps of the sea, to show the sailors where they could steer without running on the rocks and sand, and how to sail safely from one country to another. This world was not as big then as it is now, or should say, people did not know it was as big. Most of the lands that Columbus had studied about in school, and most of the people he had heard about, were in Europe and parts of Asia and Africa. The city of Genoa, where Columbus lived, was a very busy and a very rich city. It was on the Mediterranean Sea, and many of the people who lived there were sailors who went in their ships on voyages to distant lands. They sailed to other places on the Mediterranean Sea, which is a very large body of water, you know, and to England, to France, to Norway, and even as far away as the cold northern island of Iceland. This was thought to be a great journey. The time in which Columbus lived was not as nice a time as is this in which you live. People were always quarreling and fighting about one thing or another, and the sailors who belonged to one country would try to catch and steal the ships or the things that belonged to the sailors or the storekeepers of another country. This is what we call piracy, and a pirate, you know, is thought to be a very wicked man. But when Columbus lived, men did not think it was so very wicked to be a sort of halfway pirate, although they did know they would be killed if they were caught. So almost every sailor was about half pirate. Every boy who lived near the seashore and saw the ships and the sailors felt as though he would like to sail away to far-off lands and see all the strange sights and do all the brave things that the sailors told about. Many of them even said they would like to be pirates and fight with other sailors and show how strong and brave and plucky they could be. Columbus was one of these. He was what is called an adventurous boy. He did not like to stay quietly at home with his father and comb out the tangled wool. He thought it would be much nicer to sail away to sea and be a brave captain or a rich merchant. When he was about 14 years old, he really did go to sea. There was a captain of a sailing vessel that sometimes came to Genoa who had the same last name, Columbus. He was no relation, but the little Christopher somehow got acquainted with him among the wharves of Genoa. Perhaps he had run on errands for him, or helped him with some of the sea charts he knew so well how to draw. At any rate, he sailed away with this Captain Columbus as his cabin boy, and went to the wars with him and had quite an exciting life for a boy. Sailors are very fond of telling big stories about their own adventures or about far-off lands and countries. Columbus listened to many of these sea stories and heard many wonderful things about a very rich land away to the east that folks called Cathay. If you look in your geographies, you will not find any such place on the map as Cathay, but you will find China, And that was what men in the time of Columbus called Cathay. They told very big stories about this far-off eastern land. They said its kings lived in golden houses, that they were covered with pearls and diamonds, and that everybody there was so rich that money was as plentiful as the stones in the street. This, of course, made the sailors and storekeepers, who were part pirate, very anxious to go to Cathay and get some of the gold and jewels and spices and splendor for themselves. But Cathay was miles and miles away from Italy and Spain and France and England. It was away across the deserts and mountains and seas and rivers, and they had to give it up because they could not sail there.